I got to spend 2 days up at Snowbird, one of the most beautiful places on earth, with our next speaker. John Creger has been an English teacher since 1987 at American High School in Fremont, California. And he spent most of his career in the classroom developing a model of learning, which is synthesized from ideas described in the Ranch book. The Personal Creed Project, which he has created with his sophomores over 20 years, is being adapted in schools and colleges across the US and Canada. And I felt very aware of our building your ranch community while I was up at Snowbird, in part because John is now applying this curriculum to the Truth Seekers curriculum. And that's an example of our community members expanding each other's ideas, applying them in new ways. And another is that John has sourced a critical piece of his material from an essay by our last speaker, David Cantor. I don't know if David is aware of this. I think he is. In a piece he wrote called An Essay on Hope, David says most of us live on an emotional spectrum from despair to faith. And in the middle towards despair is doubt. In the middle towards faith is hope. Fear is what drives us from doubt to despair, and ideals are what move us from hope to faith. So John has extrapolated from this essay a definition of ideals, which he describes as our best hopes for the future that we're willing to work for. He uses this definition to help his students understand the value of ideals and thereby develop purpose through personal creed. In honor of the Creed Project, John was the 2001 recipient of the James Moffett Memorial Award for Teacher Research from the National Council of Teachers of English and the National Writing Project. A nominee for Fremont Unified School District's 2008 Teacher of the Year, John has been in 6 editions of Who's Who Among America's Teachers. His first book is The Personal Creed Project and a New Vision of Learning. I'm pleased to welcome John Creger.
Thank you. How's the volume? Teenagers have no idea how obvious body posture is when we text. Even kids who promise me that no teacher will ever catch them. I'm in their faces so fast, so pleasantly, most of the time, that they usually just hand over the phones with no complaints. But I have to eventually give those back. If you'd like to make a more permanent contribution to public education, just strike a texting pose. And before you notice that I've swooped down and back to the stage, your BlackBerry will be in my collection. Now, when I was in high school, the closest thing we had to texting body posture was even more obvious. The point was to get the teacher's attention. We used a passive-aggressive technology from the back row, kind of. To attend graduation really never crossed my mind. The next day after graduation, I started my life with one plan: stay as far from classrooms as possible. A dozen years later, I find myself at the university. I'm doing at least one all-nighter a week, writing a paper in a state of near ecstasy. I graduated English with writing published in 5 languages on 3 continents. My body posture in college? I'm leaning forward, taking notes for all I'm worth in the front row of the lecture hall. So what made the difference between this and this? In my mid-20s, I picked up a hitchhiker. He carried large portions of the Urantia book verbatim in his memory. For 5 weeks, staying in my spare bedroom, he taught me evenings when I came home from work. God was alive, as the song goes. Magic was afoot. I arrived at the university with a sense of purpose. By the time I got to college, I knew the universe had plans for me. I knew I was loved by some powerful forces, even God. And I knew that these forces would guide me in my life. What if my soul had had a sense of purpose when I was in high school? What if I'd even known I had a soul? How might my life be different? What if school was designed to help young people develop healthy hearts and minds and souls filled with purpose? What if school was designed to inspire and equip students not only to make a living, but to seek and find their own truths? What if schools were reconfigured to help young people become purveyors of wisdom and passers of torches? So what's this talk about? First this morning, I want to share with you some of the uplifting things I get to see in the high school classroom. These things follow from my experiments in helping young people find deeper purpose in their lives and learning. Second, I want you to hear about research on the sense of purpose among young people today, research I think you'll find eye-opening. I'm especially excited to share with you the latest version of the model of deepened learning I've synthesized from the Ranch book. This model is the foundation of all the work I do and trying to develop a more workable approach to learning. I wanted to show you a terrific visual that I've developed, and I would save having described it for you, but I'm going to ask you to visualize it yourself, and I'll try to make it really, just describe the essence of it for you. Because the computer and the projector couldn't talk to each other. Finally, I want to suggest to the Rancher movement the idea that learning is the core drive of human evolution. And that since our survival depends on our ability to learn new ways, the greatest opportunity to uplift this world may lie in supporting efforts to transform public education in this country. How's that all sound? Walt Whitman once wrote, "Re-examine all you have been told. Dismiss what insults your soul." How often do you hear talk of souls in school? How would you like to quickly scan the souls of some of my students? Okay, did you all bring your soul scanners? Excellent. Bill's got his. So get them out and let's take a look at Lorado. Again, I want you to try to visual. If you're visual, I'm going to read some of her words. Visualize in your favorite graphics on the screen these words that you're going to hear from my student, Lorato Anderson. She will be here. She'll be on stage with me someday on a panel because she's just ready. Here's what she wrote when she was 15. "I think I care the most about having a full soul. I see my soul as being a mixture of several aspects of life, including emotion, experience, wisdom, and other factors I can sense more than explain. It's difficult to achieve, but I think once someone has one, the person gains an inner force and power that can be used to help his or her surroundings." How typical a sophomore was Lorado. Not too typical. So what was she saying about souls? According to Lorado, our souls give us the power to benefit our surroundings. This probably includes higher purposes, like benefiting others. So a soul, especially a full soul, according to Lorado, can lead us to higher purposes. And Lorado has just brought us to the title that I've chosen for this talk. Souls on Purpose, Torch Passing, and the Core Drive. So would you call Lorado a truth seeker? Absolutely. Her soul she came to the class with a deep soul. And I wish there were more time to talk about her because she's awesome. She was hungry to explore her soul. Should schools support Lorado in this exploration? Yes. Is school today, as it's designed, capable of helping students discover their souls or the souls of their classmates? No. The truth is that school is designed to abuse and even torture our souls. The great literacy pioneer James Moffat wrote that if we abused our students' bodies as we do their hearts and minds, we'd all be in prison. Raise your hand if you carry some scars from your education. It's almost unanimous out there. How is it that the institution that is intended to educate, to lead souls out, instead pounds them and twists them back into the darkness? Let's listen to Joe for a minute. Joe virtually did no work in class all year long. He did every assignment, however, for a spring project called the Personal Creed Project. It's a semester-long journey of self-discovery that we'll talk about in a few minutes. Even though he had no hope of passing the class, Joe gave the Creed Project his best. And in his course evaluation at the end of the year, he told me why. Here's what he said. I had no idea if he was even partly literate. The Creed Project, Joe wrote, helped me find out things about myself that I would never have known before. At first I thought that this project was going to be the same stupid work that had to do with learning in school. But after I started getting into it, I was so infatuated with this Creed Project. This project allowed me to experience deeper thoughts and explorations of my mind and soul. I found out things about my family and friends that all of a sudden appeared in my head. This project was tough at times to understand, but it paid off in the end. Now, I am not asking these kids to write about their souls. This is coming from them. Joe went on to continuation school that year and the following year. And so why would he write a glowing endorsement of a school project? Well, he's one of a growing list of failing students that constitute my greatest evidence that a deeper approach to learning works with everybody. And those kids are the greatest documentation. Those statements from Joe, and I have many others, are the things that keep me going. So, what makes school learning so stupid? Here's what I see. The pain school inflicts stems from a dangerously shallow notion of learning. The curricular chariot and curriculum, one meaning in Latin of curriculum is a chariot race. So the curricular chariot is driving us into a ditch. Why? Because our prevailing conception of learning fails to recognize, let alone honor, our deeper parts. School disregards our hearts, souls, and the parts that make us unique, the personalities we have from the Father. It disregards the parts that inspire us the parts that make us connected, the fragments of God within us. These are the parts that inspire us to learn for its own sake and to grow cosmically. Thank you, Meg. Now, learning that honors these deeper parts attracts all students. I like how David put it. David was a gang member who was almost expelled. But the fight was aborted. The gang fight in the parking lot got cut off before it happened. So here's what David said. This project gave students new avenues of thought, which would help them to ascribe a better future to themselves. He was already pretty literate. I mean, I knew that he was literate. One can compare the Creed Project to a light emerging forth from one's head and awakening a person from a coma. See what I'm saying about these statements? Again, I suggest that learning is the core drive of human evolution. If you think of biology, adaptation is a form of learning. The CREED project serves as a window to a new way of seeing learning, and here's what Judith wrote about the course as a whole. I started as a passive sophomore who always did what was said to do. I never went outside the box. Yet, as the year went on, I felt I began to lose dependency on being educated by someone else. I began to educate myself of things that weren't taught in books. I began to feel myself grow, not physically, but mentally and spiritually. I'm satisfied now, because through this class I no longer have a spirit that is solely based on religion. Likewise, I no longer have the mentality of only learning things from books. Judith had come from a traditional learning environment in Mexico, and this kind of independence in her learning may have been a big leap for her. So, last story from a student, last soul you're going to be scanning today, almost, is Brandon. Now, Brandon came to me in his sophomore year. In the spring, the previous spring, his mother had been killed in a car crash. His father had never really been in his life. And came to me, and he was in the back row, so obviously I connected with him very, very well. And he was hanging out with the other guys in the back row, and so I was kind of, quietly reaching for them. And eventually, I got some rises out of Brandon. And what got him was we had this project called the World Wisdom Project. Beginning of the year, we look at pieces of wisdom from all over the world, connecting with all the different cultural groups in the class. So I bootleg in the class a lot. For instance, we have quotes on the screen from M.C. Izadek. And M. Nabadan. And they never ask me anything more, that's okay. So another bootleg I do is, I think I got this from the Rancher book, 3 levels of wisdom. Material wisdom, and then there's like street smarts. Then there's intellectual wisdom, duty, I should not. And then there's higher wisdom, loving and being loved, and serving others and such. So Brandon took this in, and he came to me and said, Mr. Creger, I think there might be a 4th level of wisdom. And I had this, if I had dentures, they probably would have fallen out. So I said to him, let's sit down on this one. So we sat down and pulled it out of him a little bit, and what he's talking about is the wisdom of those not recognized for being wise. And his examples were pimps, drug dealers, and prostitutes. Now, who else hung out with people like that? Mm-hmm. So I said, this kid is pretty cool. I think I'm not going to let him get away. So, as it turns out, we've been friends ever since 5-6 years, and his brother, in fact, is a drug dealer. And his brother, in last September, picked up Brandon's Urantia book with no high school diploma, and has been digesting it in detail as much as 3 hours a day. We went on a hike, the 3 of us, and this the brother he's got an encyclopedic knowledge of those of the rebellion, Adam and Eve, and on and on. It's quite amazing. So we're going to try to form a study group, the 3 of us. Now, Brandon is actually here with Truth Seekers. And so thank you. Okay.
He's having a great time.
Yes, thank you, Bill. I've been, he's been calling me every night. He's doing very well. Before we get too warm and fuzzy, let's do a reality check. What portion of our students in particular, and young people in general, devote much time to the kind of introspection you've heard from Lorado, Joe, David, Brandon, and Judy? According to research by William Damon, director of the Center for Adolescence at Stanford, only 20% of young people today have any appreciable sense of purpose. You'd have all sorts of other information up there. I'm just going to keep it short. Another 25% at the other end of the spectrum is seriously disengaged. Some actively involved in destructive behavior, self-destructive or sociopathic behavior. The remaining 55% of young people, more than half, according to this research, are dreaming, and he has certain criteria for this, and with the other half dabbling. So only 1 in 5 young people has an appreciable sense of purpose. More than half don't. Does this ring true to you? Yeah, my kids in my classes say, yeah, that sounds right. So when a trusted researcher like William Damon has clearly identified a problem like widespread purposelessness, you'd hope schools would come to the rescue, right? But school is laboring under a sorrowfully inadequate conception of learning, can't even rescue students' souls from the beating it gives them with its own curriculum. School has taken this generation on a chariot race to nowhere. So what needs to happen? We need to think about learning in a deeper way. In the paper Development of the State, we find one of several statements in the Urantia book on the purpose of education. The purpose of education should be the acquirement of skill, pursuit of wisdom, realization of selfhood, and attainment of spiritual values. Now, I've synthesized a model of learning from this and numerous other statements in the Urantia book, and I'm going to tax your visual powers again. Ask you to picture this. At the center, the central purpose of learning, central aim of learning, I'm just going to make it short and sweet. Understanding self, world, others, and unfolding. Make sense? Okay, we can put words to that later. But what I think really makes it work is, over here, you've got mastering facts. Over here, you've got construing meanings. Right? I use construing because music, emotion, those are meanings too. And then down at the deep parts, you've got discovering values. And near discovering values, you have heart, purpose, soul, creativity, those things. This is the continuum of learning: mastering facts, construing meanings, discovering values. If kids are not doing all of these things all the time, they're not learning according to the way the universe has designed us. Makes sense? It's not very complicated once you have that fact, meaning, value thing. So I'm showing this model now to groups of educators around the country, and I'm trying to get it out because it's a rationale for building education that will work. You heard me say that our current education system abuses us on many levels, and most of us are victims of shallow learning. Why am I thinking of offshore drilling when I say shallow learning? Shallow learning leaves our deeper parts, our souls, our hearts, our values, our purpose, our creativity, high and dry. Does this make you a little angry? It should make, it makes me angry. It should make a lot of us angry, that the deepest parts of ourselves are ignored, worse yet, abused. So the model of deepened learning provides a rationale to develop robust and effective learning for schools and classrooms to honor and develop students' deeper parts in combination with what we now call academics. So, the Creed Project. This is what started this whole thinking for me. Personal Creed Project is an extended learning experience consisting in my classroom of about 16 weeks in which students systematically reflect on their experience in life, their influences, the circumstances, the experiences, the people, qualities, and questions in their lives that have formed and shaped them. The reflections are like a wide and systematic net students cast into their life experience. And after they've hauled in the long weeks of reflection, they come to 2 weeks of presentations, when each student stands before classmates and teacher and shares these 4 elements. These are the main forces and people that have shaped me. This is what I stand for or value most in my life. These are the qualities I wish to develop in myself over the next 10 years to honor my creed. And this is how I might envision serving or helping others, making a difference in the world in 10 years. This is a rite of passage in our classroom, and it's a part of our school culture, actually. Now, and it's exciting. Oh, my brother did the creed, my sister did the creed, and they always want to know, how's the creed going? Because now almost all of the sophomore team is running this. We have schools and colleges around the country who are now running this creed. There are ongoing creed sites at middle schools, high schools, and colleges across North America. I can't say it's a network yet. And these presentations, by the way, are the only public rite of passage that many students have the opportunity to participate in. And they generate a collective excitement across the sophomore class. In recent years, technology is getting to be a really powerful element, and recent video developments. This past year, some of the videos were just knockouts, and I was hoping to maybe have a clip of it next time. Truth-seeking to torch passing. The Urantia movement is clearly doing more and more effective torch passing. Outreach. We generally think outreach means sharing the Urantia book, and there are some great efforts going on in this area. Go, ya. Yeah. I find myself dreaming of another kind of outreach, an additional kind of outreach. It really goes right along with Meredith Tunney's parable. The center of the parable is publishing and promoting the book. It's a field of service. The next ring out is study. Study groups, study materials, promoting study of the book. The third ring out, as I see it, is spreading the teachings, the practices, the awareness of the fifth ethical revelation without reference to the book. That's what I do. Artists often, of course, do the same thing. I don't mention the Urantia book in class. On rare occasions, I'll share it with a student I know very well. Of course, as Angie pointed out, there is a third ring that maybe actually permeates all the rings, which is living the teachings. But I'm out here working in this field out here, at the edges, I think. And I believe that the largest, most needful field of service is K-12 education. Everyone passes across this field, or dies, or sinks in quicksand in the middle of it. It is also the most ripe in its potential for assisting us in planetary uplift. Perhaps in the years ahead, the Urantia movement will see this and organize to support the transformation of education. Again, in my book, I put it like this: learning is the core drive of human evolution. For now, I hope the personal creed process, and we had a great time yesterday, and I have a new friend, Doug. Doug, are you here? Doug, awesome. Doug walked into our creed presentations yesterday, having no idea what the Urantia book was, and really not knowing why he was there. And so I wish everyone knew how to give a whoosh, but Could you take a whoosh from everybody in this room? Okay, here's the whoosh. So, on the count of 3, Doug is going to receive in his heart. Doug is right here.
Okay.
Don't feel like anyone's pointing at you. So, we're going to give Doug a whoosh, and on the count of 3, you're going to do what I do, but I'm not going to count yet. You're going to go like this. Whoosh. Okay? Doug's just going to receive that. So, 1, 2, 3. Whoosh. Excellent. It set him back, just like I hoped it would. Okay, so I'm going to close with my creed statement, which I updated right before this workshop. Okay? Here's my creed statement, give you an idea of a creed statement. I stand for learning to love my family with more and more of my heart. Family begins with me, extends to my loving immediate family, and extends to my universe family. I value sincerity. I stand for doing my best to give loving attention to my daughters and helping them develop into caring, loving, fulfilled adults. I stand for helping young people create a world where their children see more truth, more beauty, more justice, more compassion. Thank you for your attention. I love you all.